tumultuous week in Singapore politics. When it rains, it pours, in Singapore politics. So welcome to episode 53 of Teh Tarik with Walid. So today is gonna be quite different from the normal format, I suppose. So I will not be having another guest. I will be speaking myself, and as and when, if you think you have something to contribute, feel free to send me an invitation and I'll let you in, depending on my mood. All right, so this is before I give an overview of what I will be talking about. So obviously there have been 5 main incidents, right, that have happened over the past couple of weeks. So it began with the Redoubt Road saga, which seems like a lifetime ago now, and then the arrest of Minister Iswaran, the hot mic issue of former Speaker Tan Chuan Jin, and of course the two inappropriate relationships involving both the ruling party and the Workers' Party. And I think a lot of people have been asking, I think a lot of you here is over 100 already, which is not often you get over 100 people. And I think a lot of you are here. You are here basically to ask. Yes, Subhash has the popcorn, 3 popcorn emojis. You are here to hear my take on Nicole and Leon, probably, right? And this is what I have to say. So I want to get it out of the way first. So I really have, if you are looking for something salacious or sordid, I really have nothing to say about that. I really have nothing to say about that, and this is why. The reason is because Leon and Nicole are both friends of mine, and I like them. I think they have contributed a lot to the political scene. I genuinely mean that, and they are nice people to me, right? Of course, it doesn't mean that other people cannot comment. They are public figures. I think, okay, it's fair game. I'm saying this is my stand on it. And Nicole and Leon both, on a very personal note, they both attended my dad's funeral, and I will never forget anyone who did that. And they also, right after we lost our twins, they sent, I think probably that night itself or the day after, they sent like herbal essence for my wife Shafiqah, probably like worth hundreds of dollars, and I will never forget that. And I want to quote my friend Angie New, Ilo by Angie. She appeared on this show before, and she said, in the age of cancel culture, right, that it was a different context, of course, not that I'm saying Nicole and Leon are cancelled or what, not that. It was a different context, but the principle is the same. In the age of cancel culture, there is something to be said about loyalty, right? So that's all I have to say about that. I have nothing to add. And then what about Tan Chuan Jin and Cheng Hui? I take a similar approach for different reasons. One is, since I'm not commenting on Nicole and Leon, it's not fair for me to comment on Tan Chuan Jin and Cheng Hui. And second of all, we always forget that there are humans behind this, and it's not. Then you may say, what about Iswaran? That's a completely different situation. That's a public mistake. Public mistakes need to be dealt with publicly, and this is a private mistake, which doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't involve the rest of us. And there is nothing more to add, because it can cause hurt to people who are not involved, their family members. So I don't think we need to. I understand it's fair. As I said, they are public figures, it's fair game. You can make memes and you can joke about it, but often we forget there are real people behind all of that, and that will be the approach I'm taking today. So I am not taking any questions on the affairs, the relationships, and so on. I am not. I just don't want to, right? So I'll be talking about more boring stuff, right? So if, for those of you who are here for the spicy stuff, I think you can take your leave already. So I'll be talking about more boring stuff. And this, I have 6 main topics to talk about today. So I don't know how long it will take. It can be 15 minutes today, it can be 3 hours, I don't know. So first is I want to talk about what are the effects, or what is the possible impact of all of this on elections and voters, right? So that's the first one, on the general elections. The second one is what does this do for the series of events, what does it do for PM Lee's legacy, and what does it bode, how does it bode for the 4G. Third, the GRC system, because now we have 6 members of parliament. 6 members of parliament. Yes, I will talk about the handover to Minister Lawrence Wong, DPM Lawrence Wong. So the GRC system, now we have 6 out of 93 elected MP seats. 6 are vacant, right? Who knows, right? At the rate it's going, maybe there will be a couple more that goes vacant, right? So what does it tell us about the GRC system? Fourth is the role of the Speaker of Parliament, and this is pertaining to the hot mic incident, of course, and broadly we need to talk about what the Speaker of Parliament entails. Fifth, what is the effect of all of this on the presidential elections? And also there is another entrant into the presidential election, thrown his name into the ring, and I will talk about that. Then last one is not related to this series of events, which is there's something that came out, which is a list of NMPs, nominated members of parliament, right? So I'll be talking about 6 topics today. Okay, so anyone who wants to come on at any point in time, please. Today I will be a bit more selective, and I hope you understand. I hope you understand that it's not easy for me when there are friends involved, and it doesn't change my relationship with them, and I still like them. They are still my friends. I'm not one to just suddenly abandon them, right? So yeah, but I'll still talk anyway, because a lot of people have asked me, and as we can see, we have about 200 viewers. So I suppose you are not here to hear just about those relationships. Okay, firstly, elections and voters. By the way, I am reading the comments as well. So is mainstream media watching this? Ashraf asks. I don't know, I hope so. I'm sure there are some journalists here. Okay, so the first one, the impact on elections and voters. So this is the thing. There are many things that can and will happen before the next general election. So it's really too early to tell what this series of events has done in terms of affecting electoral outcomes. A lot of times elections are affected by timing, and they are affected by events leading up to the actual voting day itself. Give you an example. Not long ago, just 3 years ago, although again that may seem like several lifetimes away, 2020 general election, even the PAP admitted that right, that their strategy against Raisa Han, remember her, Raisa Han, it sort of backfired, because younger people think differently about race. That was what Minister Shanmugam said. So a lot of things can happen from now until then. So in terms of election results, it's really too early to tell. However, generally, I classify the Singaporean electorate into 3 main groups, and I have some numbers for them as well. The first one is the pro-PAP camp, right? And I put this number to be about 35%. Where do I get this number? I think the 2011 presidential election is a good gauge. So the ones who voted for Tony Tan, they are the ones who are really pro-establishment. The ones who voted for Tan Jise, who was a candidate furthest away, that was about 25%. So Tony Tan got about 34%, 35. Tan Jise got about 25. So the ones who voted for Tan Jise were really anti-PAP, anti-establishment. And in between, so I don't know how to interpret Tan Kin Lian's votes, but the Tan Cheng Bock vote, and Tan Cheng Bock in 2011 wasn't the Tan Cheng Bock in 2020. Tan Cheng Bock had just left PAP, so he was opposition but still kind of PAP, right? So what you that group that voted for Tan Cheng Bock, what you can discern is that, or what I discern at least, they are the ones who vote, they lean towards PAP, but they are not PAP no matter what, right? So the 35% pro-PAP, no matter what the government does, there's nothing that would change their minds, right? The anti-PAP, if the sky is blue, they will say, why didn't the PAP make it green, right? And elections are not won or lost on those groups. Elections are won or lost because of that middle ground, which I say lean PAP, right? For obvious reasons, right? PAP has been successful, material welfare has increased tremendously, and of course there are obstacles against the opposition and so on, things which I have discussed in previous episodes, right? So this middle ground is the one that really matters. Especially, again, remember they lean PAP, but they are not afraid to vote against the PAP when it comes to a point where they need to do so. So this middle ground, I think, if you look at the series of incidents that have happened, even though they are all different, right? Different. Redoubt, Iswaran, Hot Mic, and the relationship versus the WP's one relationship, I think overall there is a net negative for the PAP. I think there is no way getting around it, right? Yes, the way they handled, you can say the way they handled the Iswaran case, which I think is the most damaging. And by the way, all four are not equal, right? So let me deal with that before I talk about the net negative. So the Redoubt Road, it wasn't about corruption, and I think we need to be fair. It wasn't about corruption. I don't think we should say it's about corruption. Even the opposition didn't make that claim. So for me, when people were criticizing the issue through a corruption lens, I thought it wasn't corruption, and it didn't make sense to talk about corruption now. I think that angle, actually, why many were upset, it was more about inequality, right? And I think Minister Shanmugam acknowledged this. He spent some time to talk about inequality and his response to that. So it wasn't really corruption. It was more about the perception of inequality, right? So we need to separate that, because that is in a completely different level, a completely different league to the Iswaran case. Completely. How do we know? Well, there are several differences. One is CPIB started one investigation and not the other. The other one, the government, the PM asked CPIB to do that, right? Read out. So the other one, Iswaran, CPIB was the one that did it. The second one, Minister Shanmugam and Vivian Balakrishnan were not put on leave of absence. Minister Iswaran was. The third is, of course, the two were not arrested, and Minister Iswaran was. So obviously, there is something egregious in the letter, right? So we must acknowledge that. At the same time, elections are not always about facts. They are about perceptions. Politics is about perception as well as reality, and often perception is more important than reality in politics. So I think the readout, probably it matters. There's public optics, so it would affect, but not as much as Iswaran, and even I would say the Hot Mic scandal, Hot Mic saga, and of course the scandal. Now, so I think net negative in terms of public perception, because WP also has this issue, has the one scandal. So net negative, I would say. So WP also lost some points, but the PAP lost more points, I think, because more incidents. However, we look at who the PAP lost. Speaker Tan Chuan Jin, MP Cheng Li Hui, Minister S. Iswaran. We put aside Taman first because I'll address that. So these three, and then we lose the PAP loses that, and Singapore loses them as parliamentarians as well, and the WP lost Leon, Nicole, and if you want to include Raisa from previously, right? Now, I don't want to say with all due respect, because that usually is accompanied by a statement that doesn't show respect, right? But what I would say is Tan Chuan Jin, Cheng Hui, Iswaran, and Raisa, they are replaceable. They are replaceable. Especially for the PAP, these three, they are extremely replaceable, I think, for the PAP. PAP has a far bigger pool. The PAP has more MPs, they have more people who want to join them, and so on. So they are far more replaceable. So even though the perceptions towards the party both have taken a hit, and I think the PAP has taken more of a hit, but in terms of the quality of people who are lost, Leon and Nicole are far more integral to the WP than Tan Chuan Jin, Cheng Hui, and S. Iswaran are or were to the PAP. I think that's my opinion. So I think in terms of who is lost, and if you look at L.O. Pritam's press conference, and when he said Leon is a good parliamentarian, Singaporeans can judge. Leon is a good person on the ground, and Nicole has done a lot of work on the ground as well. So I like that. I like the fact that I think this is the humanness as well. I think both PM and Pritam I think did a lot of good things in their press, PM and the human side, because often when we talk about politics, we see the politicians as, we don't see them as humans, and when incidents like that happen, then we are reminded. So PM said about I hope Singaporeans give them space to heal because their families are also healing. So I like that a lot. And then when Pritam, he acknowledged that the two of them have done a lot of good, right? So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I guarantee you, in the past few days, Tan Chuan Jin, Cheng Hui, Iswaran, Nicole, and Leon, what they have found out is suddenly that the friends that they had before are suddenly not contacting them or have distanced themselves from them, and so on. So I think it's important for us not to forget that the humans, right? Not that they are above criticism. I've done many episodes where I criticize MPs, politicians, from the government, from the opposition. Yeah, that's fine, but there's a difference between a policy, a party criticism versus something that goes to the heart of their families, right? So I would say quantity versus quality. It's a net negative for WP. Quality over quantity. Net negative for WP, even though perceptions towards party-wise, net negative for PAP. However, losing SM Taman is a huge deal, I think. It does make the front bench weaker, although he probably was on the way out as well. So now we have to, I think that is a significant loss for the PAP, right? Is it balanced by the loss of Leon from the WP's perspective and Nicole? Probably not. As I said, the PAP still has a bigger talent pool. They have more MPs, they have more cadres, they have more supporters in society, they have more resources to recruit the best talents, right? So I hope, I'm reading the comments. So I think SM Taman is the only significant loss. However, they sort of can recover from it somewhat. There is no replacing Taman. There just isn't. Right? But you still have really competent people, right? You have PM Lee, you have Minister Shanmugam, you have other people who from the 3G, and I will talk about 3G versus 4G, and you have from the 4G as well, that I think probably would cushion the loss. Right? Okay, so I've already talked about the first part, elections and voters, right? So let me read the comments. Middle ground voters are swing voters. Yes. Would you think it'll be wise to snap call an election now? From the PSP's perspective, I would, if I were advising PM Lee, I would say no. And PM Lee said in his presser, he said he has no intentions of calling it now, right? I think it would be this series of events still fresh on the minds of people. I don't know why someone would call an election now. Do you think PM Lee would have done that press statement by Liana in response to the resignation of Tan and Cheng if it weren't for the Redoubt saga and Iswaran probe? Yes, I think he would. Those two are unrelated. Whether it was related to the hot mic, because I think Zakir from the Straits Times asked PM, would this incident have been, would you have come out if it wasn't because of the hot mic incident? And PM said it would have come out sooner or later. So he sort of didn't deny that the hot mic precipitated it. So I think hot mic, yes, but it has nothing to do with Redoubt and S. Iswaran. Any thoughts on the optics of CPIB announcing the arrest days later? Yeah, I think that was there's some questions to be asked why. But for me personally, the moment it was announced, I mean, you know that something was happening. So it's not as if the arrest was unexpected or anything. But the moment Minister Iswaran was put on leave of absence, then you can understand that there is something major already, and the CPIB is investigating him, or he's assisting in investigations. You know something major is happening. Somebody said, feel so sad losing Nicole and Leon. Nicole had such good potential, and I had high hopes of her winning next GE, contributing in Parliament. That makes two of us. Is the GRC system still relevant? We will talk about that later. Debbie, do you think PAP can move away from rooting their party values in purity and virtue? Not purity and virtue per se, but yes, so whiter than white, right? So I honestly, right, I am not concerned if there are two types of failings, right? And all of us have we are not public figures, so all of us have personal failings, right? But the politicians, there are two types of failings for them: the public failings and the private failings. I'm not concerned about private failings, which I think that's the case with Speaker Tan and Cheng Li-Hui, although you can say maybe because he's speaker that makes it conflict of interest or whatever it is, or Leon and Nicole. So I personally don't see why people should resign, but okay, that's the standard the parties have set. They can do that. I would have liked to see this being tested. Either of the party, okay, you can talk about this, but you can tell the public that this is what happened, but then you don't drop them, you give them a chance at redemption, and then let voters decide and see whether it really has an impact on elections, right? I would like to see that tested, but we haven't seen that. So Darren said, I contacted Nicole, but no response, just hoping that she and the 4 others can pull through this, not distancing away. I contacted her as well, and she did respond, but our conversation will remain private, of course. Bailey, Gin and Whiskey, Tan Chuan Jin and Cheng Li-Hui appeared in BBC News. So sad for their families. Indeed, I am as well, and I am not a friend of Tan Chuan Jin or Cheng Li-Hui. I don't know them. I mean, of course, I know them. I mean, and Speaker Tan Chuan Jin knows of me, but we don't know each other personally. I was never a fan of his to begin with, but I do feel sad for him, and which is why I think we need to give them space. Wouldn't the loss of Taman be something Straight Settle said would be something that the party's been prepping for a while? Yes. That doesn't mean it's not loss, right? Like you cannot okay, so I give a football analogy, right? Oh, Messi is retiring, right? You know Messi is gonna retire in 3 years. Doesn't mean when he retires it's still not lost. If you was Chi Soon Juan, what would you do next, GE or SMC or GRC? Or that escalated quickly, but I don't know whether I'll address that or not. We'll see. Any thought on the timing PM Lee chose to announce the Tan Chuan Jin scandal? Yeah, timing is often everything, but again, now without facts we would be speculating. So I'll take the lead of L.O. Pritam Singh, and he doesn't want Singaporeans to speculate Uh, so Trevor asks, can people ask to join this call? Yes, you can. Would it be possible if you think you have something to say, you have questions to ask me, except for I've already said what I don't want to talk about. Other questions I'm happy to answer if I can. So please don't ask me conspiracy theory questions. A leadership grab by Lau Tiakang. Yeah. Speaking of conspiracy theories, no, I don't see that. Do you? Should politicians be accountable? Oh, so is everything a politician does everything a politician do become political? As I said, I would differentiate between private and public failings. Okay, so there's a person who asks, a politician who cannot be truthful to their own family cannot be trusted to be truthful to the people. I think that's a silly saying, to be honest, for a few reasons, right? One is human beings are complex, and I hope the older a person gets, the more a person realizes. Human beings are complex. Nobody is 100% good, nobody is 100% bad. And hopefully a good person is someone who has more good than bad. But a good person is not somebody who doesn't have bad things, bad traits. No, that person doesn't exist, right? Okay, from a Muslim's perspective, I believe only prophets were that, right? But from a secular perspective, and I just needed to say that, right? Because I am a Muslim. So, but nobody is, right? Other than that, nobody is. So, and we cannot hold politicians to standards which are impossible, I think, right? So back to this saying that a politician who is not truthful to their own family cannot be trusted to be truthful to people. No, this is I think not understanding human nature. There are different spheres of life. Somebody may be good to some person but not good to another person, right? How many people who abuse their spouses, right, are good to other people, right? Does that mean they are a good person? Probably not, right? But from the perspective of people that they are good to, they are good people, right? So this is quite a silly thing. And you know that there are many people, many leaders in history, right, who have done very, very evil things. But it's like saying, oh, Hitler had a dog, right? And so what? Right? What does that mean? Oh, he's nice to animals. So what? What does that mean, right? So there can be different spheres, right? You can be nice to animals, but not nice to human beings, right? And human beings are complex. So I think we need to live in reality, right? Martin Luther King Jr. Also had personal issues, right? And if we were to remove him because of that, we would have removed the leader of one of the most significant ever civil rights movements of all time, right? I think I don't want to set that standard, right? What are your opinions on TCJ? I don't want to kick a man when he's down, and he's left the political scene already. There's nothing for me to say about that. And how politicians are expected to uphold the illusion that they're 100. So Z says, what I find interesting is the depth of taboo that infidelity has in public eye, and how politicians are expected to uphold the illusion. Now, that's the thing. I don't think this is tested. I don't think this is tested. Is this tested that really it will affect people? It will affect people? We do not know, right? We do not know whether it will affect votes significantly. It will affect some votes, of course, right? Do you think Singaporeans care about politicians' personal affairs? I do not. Well, I think some politicians care. Some Singaporeans care. I don't. Hopefully, it's 2023. Enough people do not care anymore. With the Raisa Khan incident and this next, do you think Pritam's leadership is in question by their own party members? I think if you want to set crazy standards, unreachable standards, if we want to blame Pritam Singh for Leon and Nicole having a relationship, I think Pritam Singh might as well quit, right? If that is the standard we are having, right? There are some things we cannot legislate for. This is true for Pritam Singh. This is true for PM Lee, right? I told a journalist I don't think we should be judging PM Lee's credibility based on what Tan Chuan Jin decides to do in his private life, right? So that's the first thing. And second thing is sort of equalized, even if people may think, as I said, the middle ground voters, even if they may think there was some mishandling by WP, even if they may think that, which I don't think there was. But then the similar questions will be asked about PM Lee, because in similar timelines, in fact, it was 1 year before that, and so on. So I think politically it sorts of evens itself out. So I hope I have answered the question. Okay, so this is a comment by Audrey, and Audrey is a loyal fan of TTW, so I am obliged to read her comment. She tunes in most of the times. Everyone likes to ask how the parties will recruit differently in light of these incidents. But like Pritam said, nobody has control on what happens in future once they're in. Exactly. How do you legislate against this? Which is why I think it's, in the first place, I am not really a fan of this kind of thinking that we should drop a person because of their personal feelings. As I said, Iswaran's is very different. That's a public feeling, right? And he should be accountable for that. All right. Elections and voters done. Okay, so 1 out of 6, and it's 35 minutes already. Okay, so PM Lee, 4G, PM Lee and 4G. Okay, so I was asked by a journalist. Somebody said have a polygraph exam for all MPs. There are ways to beat the polygraph as well. Considering how hard it seems to find good candidates, is it time to downsize parliament? I don't know what that would do. Okay, so but anyway, so PM Lee and 4G. So a journalist asked me, will this series of events affect PM Lee's legacy? Well, it wouldn't help. It wouldn't help. However, I think PM Lee's legacy is sort of secure with Singaporeans, right? And I'll explain more in a while. But I think he has enough goodwill in the bank. Okay, Ashraf is scolding already. Stop reading so many comments. Got 5 more topics. Okay, his legacy is sort of secure with Singaporeans. However, I think it's much tougher for the 4G now, right? Because people may think that, oh, the PAP today is not the PAP of old, right? PAP today is not the PAP of Lee Kuan Yew, right? And PM Lee is in the tail end of his premiership already, and I think he has been Prime Minister since 2004, and I think generally people have seen that he has served the country, public service most of his life, enough goodwill in the bank. I don't know whether there will be similar amount of goodwill for the 4G leaders, and I think this series of incidents actually hurt them more than the PM, right? Is that fair or unfair? That's not the point. The point is, I think there will be questions about the credibility. Will it affect the handover, right? Will it affect the handover? Probably. And I'll tell you what. I'll give a hypothetical scenario, right? And you guys can type in, right? Let me ask, right? Between option A and option B, and you just type A or B, okay? Option A. So Singaporeans are asked, okay? Referendum. Option A, Lee Hsien Loong stays on for another 5 years. Option B, DPM Lawrence Wong take on tomorrow. What do you think? What do you want? Which one? A or B? Just type A or B, okay? And while I drink my Teh Tarik, I asked Shaf to make Teh Tarik for me because this is a difficult episode. Okay, so interestingly, it's sort of split 50-50, A and B here. I am not sure whether that is gonna be replicated. Now, this is a typical Singaporean comment, right? Even in any tumultuous times, right, can throw shade at Singapore, right? The last time someone said power will be handed over but was not handed over, the country changed PM several times, right? Only Singaporeans will say these types of comments during these types of times, right? But anyway, so A and so I think it's mostly Well, it's 50-50 or 55-45 maybe. I think maybe slightly more A's, and maybe there is a generational divide. Or let's say it's 50-50, right? Okay. So what if the option is PM stay on 2 more years? So option A, PM stays on 2 more years. Option B, DPM Lawrence Wong takes over tomorrow. So more A's this time. So some people, including Laili, I think have changed from B to A, I think. Or Laili, were you A just now? Right. So more A's. Interesting. And I think this proves my point. By the way, my audience, oh hi Sinmin, my audience is of course not reflective of the general population, right? So but the amongst the 260 of you, those who participated here, I think more people said A than B, although there's a significant number who said B as well, right? And my suspicion is more Singaporeans will say A than B, right? Yeah, so okay, Laili, thank you for the clarification. So I think PM, yes, of course, I'll save this live stream. So PM Lee's legacy is sort of secure in that sense. Will it affect the what C? There was no C option. Okay, so will it affect the handover? I think it will. I think it will. Probably it would delay it slightly, or I don't know what was the timeline to begin with, but I think the handover shouldn't happen now, right? And I think PM Lee should take the PAP into the next election, right? And the handover happens afterwards. I think that would be the wise thing to do, right? If you ask me, if I were to advise the PAP, not that I am advising the PAP, but I would say, yeah, go and do that. Okay, enough of the polls. Don't ask me 2 more years from today or from the next election. Okay.